Hi, third graders. It's Mrs. Linderman. We're going to talk today about taking information from our note-taking sheets and putting that into our Power Organizer so that we can then create our Google slide presentation. So if you remember, I showed you the other day the hook or the lead that I had, and I want to show you how I took that information and I put that on my Power Organizer. So remember that top triangle is our very first slide or first paragraph. So I wrote, a baby manatee, also called a calf, can weigh between 60 and 90 pounds at birth. Most human babies weigh between 6 and 9 pounds. So remember, that's my startling information, right? This fact that I think is going to shock my readers. And then I'm going to follow it up by using a topic sentence. So telling my reader what we're kind of going to talk about, right? So a manatee is a large mammal, also known as a sea cow. So I kind of gave a definition there. And if you remember, when we look at our note-taking sheet, we have those different areas, and one of them is a definition. So I just explained to them what a manatee was. And I'm also, in my Google slide presentation, going to then explain what we're going to talk about in the next 3 paragraphs. So I want to show you, I'm going to flip this over. This is my note-taking sheet about the appearance, right? What does my manatee, my animal, look like? So I took a lot of notes from all different places, different websites, and of course I cited those at the bottom, and I've got a lot of information, and I'm going to take that information and I'm going to put that into my Power Organizer. So I took some of the information that I thought was really interesting about their appearance, and I wrote that down on here. Now, I didn't just copy everything down because I don't want to use everything that I put on my note-taking sheet. I just want to give the really good information. So I'm talking about kind of the color of their skin. I'm going to talk about their rounded tail, their front legs, and what they're shaped like. I'm going to give you a little bit more information about that. They're wrinkled, right? They've got really good hearing. So I'm going to take some of this information and I'm going to turn that into part of my presentation on my Google slide. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. So here is my title page. Okay, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. So here's the title. It's called Manatees because that's the topic that I'm talking about. And then my next slide, so really our second slide, because we have a cover, right, or an introduction. My second slide has a nonfiction text feature, which is a picture of a manatee. And you can't look at that and tell me that is not the cutest thing you've ever seen, right? But it's huge, it's gigantic. So let me explain to you how I took my top triangle with my lead, my topic sentence. I give a little bit more detail about what my reader is going to learn in this presentation. And I said, a baby manatee, also called a calf, can weigh between 60 and 90 pounds at birth. Most human babies weigh between 6 and 9 pounds. A manatee is a large water mammal, also known as a sea cow. Read on to learn about their appearance, what they eat, and where they live. Because remember, those are my middle paragraphs, my rectangles from my Power Organizer, talking about their appearance, what they look like, right? What they eat, so their diet, and where they live, which is their habitat. So I'm going to show you my very first rectangle that talks about their appearance. So I put a title on there, right? Appearance. What do they look like? Because that's what the definition of an appearance is. I put another picture, but this one has a diagram and it has labels. So you'll notice that it talks about the actual manatee itself, and then it points to different parts of the animal. And what I wrote was taking some information from my Power Organizer, from my note-taking sheet, and I turned those into really interesting sentences, right? And if I'm talking about appearance, I start by saying manatees have a unique appearance, because that's how I would describe them. They are referred to as sea cows because they resemble a cow. They have wrinkled gray skin and a flat, rounded tail that helps them steer their bodies much like the rudder of a boat. Their front legs, flippers, are shaped like a paddle and they can have up to 4 toenails on their flippers. They also have an upper lip that is divided in half, which helps them grasp their food. They can be as long as 14 feet and weigh a staggering 3,500 pounds. So I give some really good details about a manatee, right? The shape of it, some interesting details like the toenails on their flippers, talking about their wide flat tail, how long they can be, how much they can weigh. And I got all that information from my research that was then put on my note-taking sheet. And then when I looked at my note-taking sheet, I decided what's the most important information that I would like to share with my reader, and that's what goes on my power organizer. And you'll notice I've got like 5 or 6 sentences here, right? And I'm explaining some things, and I'm using some really good adjectives like staggering, right? They weigh a staggering 3,500 pounds. I don't just list things that are kind of boring. I try to kind of juice those up, if you will. I call them salsa words. I try to give them some more interesting kind of zing, not just those basic words. I want to try to think of new vocabulary that I might be able to teach my reader. So this is the very beginning. I've got my title page. I have my introduction, which is my top triangle. Then I have my first rectangle. Okay, I'm going to have 2 more rectangles, right? Because we have 3 rectangles. The next one's going to be about the diet, what they eat, right? The final one's going to be about the habitat, where they live. And then the final page is going to be my conclusion, where I'm going to be restating my topic, what we've just talked about. And then I'm going to write my conclusion. And we'll talk more about that. Remember, conclusion is those mic drop endings to leave your reader with something really interesting. So I'm probably going to change this picture, but at least I have one in there so I could remind myself that I need to add another nonfiction text feature because I have a photograph. And remember on this other slide, I had a diagram with some labels. Maybe when I talk about habitat, I'm going to put a map so you can see where they live or where they come from. Maybe for their diet, I show you some pictures of the things they like to eat. Okay, so your job is to start thinking about what information can you take off of your note-taking sheet to put on your power organizer so that you get just the best information. You've done a lot of research, but you might not want to use all of it, right? You want to be very specific and you want to explain some things to your reader. You don't want to just tell them everything that you researched. You want to make sure you consolidate or group your information and give them really good, detailed information so that they learn a lot about your animal.